So just kind of there to, whoop, okay. Recording distorted, okay. All right, so the purpose of these workshops is to just kind of go over some stuff about writing tools, tips, just to kind of get you familiar with some of the stuff you're going to be asked to do in composition. That's kind of the main goal of all of the stuff with writing that we're doing this during this program, is to kind of give you a head start and jump. My phrasing is weird. Launch you into Comp 1 to at the best level you can be. So we'll be going over some different stuff over the weeks. Today's more of a syllabus day. We're kind of taking it easy since it is the first week. So we're just going to introduce ourselves. Everyone, all of you can get a chance to introduce yourselves, and then we're going to go over a couple of different writing samples just to kind of showcase different kinds of writing, how it can be fun, different things it can do, and whatnot. So this is a chill day. So I'm going to start off. My name is Victoria Robleski. Don't bother trying to spell it. It won't work. It's Polish. I have notes over here. That's why I keep looking over here. My bachelor's was in English. I did that at Rutgers-Camden, and I minored in writing and film. So if anyone has any questions about the English department or film classes, anything like that, if you feel free to shoot me an email. I'm also currently doing a master's of English also at Rutgers-Camden. And I also have tutoring experience. I worked for 3 years at the Writing and Design Lab at Rutgers-Camden. That's one of 2 writing tutoring resources that we have on campus. So that's kind of my explanation for why I am here and my qualifications for helping all of you. My career goal is to be a copy editor. I want to work with self-published authors. It's a good way for me to make sure that my life is spent in a semi-darkened room reading books, so that I'm happy with that. And my favorite author is Terry Pratchett. He's a fantasy and satire writer.
Hi, everybody. My name's Emily. My pronouns are she, her. And I just recently graduated with my undergraduate bachelor's degree in history. I was a transfer student, so I did my first 2 years at Camden County College, and I transferred in to Rutgers-Camden. And I'm currently in their graduate program, so it didn't start until the fall for their history graduate program. And I have been tutoring at the Learning Center, the Rutgers-Camden Learning Center, for the last year, so all over Zoom, though I think in the fall it's going to be in person as well. So that's the other writing resource other than the Writing and Design Lab that Victoria was talking about. So it's the Rutgers Learning Center and then the Writing and Design Lab for writing resources. I try to read every book ever, but I guess if I like Stephen King books, so I like horror books. There's that. Yes. So now we're going to go down the list of people in the room. And then if you want to introduce yourself, so your name, your pronouns, if you know your intended major, if you don't, that's okay. And then your favorite story. So it doesn't have to be a book. It can be a TV show, a movie, a play. Yes. So any type of
Podcast.
All right. I can read the names. Aaliyah. Oh, sorry.
Hi. My name is Aaliyah. My pronouns are she and her. My major, I'm choosing criminal justice as my major. A story. I do like to read, but I haven't read recently, but I did read this one book, and I fell in love with it. It's a romance. It's a romance story. It's called I Need You to Hate Me. And that's one story that I currently read that I really enjoyed. I read it in one day. So yeah, I really liked it. So.
Oh, that's always a good sign.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anaya Frazier.
You are muted. I don't know if you're trying to speak.
You can always type it too. Yeah, you can
Oh,
type.
yeah, I see it in the chat. Yeah, typing's fine if for whatever, if your mic doesn't work or if you're somewhere that's super loud, typing's fine.
Yes. If you come back, Anthony, we saw your message. All right. While Anaya is typing, I'm going to move forward. Okay. Angelica.
Hi, my name is Angelica, and what was the question? I'm sorry.
Just name, pronouns, if you have an intended major, and then any kind of story that you love.
Oh, okay. Pronoun is her, she. My major is nursing, and the book I'm currently reading right now is called Living. It's in Spanish. It's about a girl who was diagnosed with cancer.
Sound very powerful. Okay. Anthony. I think Anthony's back. Right. Anthony also might still be loading. Okay, so Christopher.
Okay, my name is Christopher. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a business management major, and I don't really read that much, but I do say my favorite book it's called And Then There Were None. I don't recall what the author was, but it's called And Then There Were None. So
Agatha Christie.
thank you.
There's a really good miniseries that I think the BBC did about that. It's got Charles Dance and some other people in it. That's really good.
Yes, I also love that book too. Okay, we have so Evelyn. All right, Evelyn said in the chat, pronouns she, her, majoring in nursing and action movies. Nice. We also have Diego.
All right, so my name is Diego, he, him. I'm majoring in psychology, and some story that I read, it's The Hate You Give. It's about 10 years, about bad things against the Black community. So they try to get his rights and all that stuff. So it's really good. So yeah.
Should I definitely read the book before watching the movie? Or watch the movie?
I think you should read the story before you watch the movie.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, both are really good. So
sometimes I agree though, reading the book first. We also have Genesis.
My name is Genesis. My pronouns are she, her. I'm majoring in nursing, and my favorite book of all time would have to be A Child Called It. It's a true story about the author and like how he was raised and stuff like that, and how like his mom treated him really bad and stuff.
Oh, that sounds interesting. The best part about doing this is that we get all kinds of recommendations, like books and movies and things. Okay, Hannah?
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. So my name's Hannah Lene, but that's just the long version of my name. You can just call me Hannah. My pronouns are she, her. My major is nursing, going for my BSN. And my favorite book of all time, which I would have never discovered without my one teacher actually, is it's called The Extraordinary Story of an Ordinary 24 Hours in America. And it's about this guy. He I think it was like he went to this diner. He wanted to write a book because he used to be a former news reporter. He asked these two children sitting in the diner, asked them, oh, you pick a month, you pick a day. So they picked like December 18th, I think. And then it was like someday in the 1900s. I can't remember what day. It's like 1980s, I think. And then he went and researched all of the different things that happened in those 24 hours. So one of his friends had a major heart surgery on that day, but the heart that he got, the heart transplant, was from somebody who committed a murder and died. And like, it's like this whole like thing, and they're all somehow connected. And it's just a really, really cool story. I definitely recommend you to read that. I'm actually going to put it in the chat because anybody I come across, I tell them to read it. It's real, and it's all true. It is a nonfiction story. It is all 100% true. It is not fake. So that's why it makes it even more interesting.
That sounds awesome. That sounds so interesting. Okay, next. So in the chat, if you could come on and tell me if I'm pronouncing your name right, is it like Oleinka? Oleinka?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Currently undecided, and favorite book is Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Classic. Right, Anthony also chimed in the chat. He, him, business major and scary movies. Love horror movies. Right. Okay, where were we? We also have, is it Cheyenne Brown?
Oh, my name is, you said right, it's Cheyenne Brown. My pronouns are she and her. My intended major at the moment is English. And I don't really have one favorite story. I'm more of a series type of girl. So like I like the Twilight series and Harry Potter series. But if I were to pick like one favorite book, it's not the like my most favorite, but a really good book I like is it's called Catcher in the Rye, and it's a very good book. It's not my favorite, but it's one of the my very favorites. So yeah.
There's a reason I didn't give a favorite book. I gave a favorite author. You can't pick one favorite.
All right. Shaya?
Hi, my name is Shaya. My pronouns are she, her. My attended major will be criminal justice and psychology. I'm currently about to read a book called The Man Who Couldn't Kill Enough. It's about Jeffrey Dahmer. So yeah, I like to read about like, I know that's weird, but I like to read about like serial killers and stuff like that, but just about like seeing about like how they were thinking and stuff like that. So yeah, that's weird. So
I understand.
Yeah.
Me too. I prefer the fictionalized element of it, like Thomas Harris, the Hannibal Lecter books, but yeah, I totally get it.
All right, Shiani? All right, in the chat, pronoun she, her, majoring in English. So chat up Victoria if you want more into the English department. Favorite book called The Cellar, about a girl that gets kidnapped and locked into a cell with 3 other women, and the kidnapper renames them after flowers. Wow, okay. Is that a true story?
no, I don't think so, but it's crazy.
Okay, Skylar. All right, also in the chat we have, I love how you guys have your answers queued up probably. She, her, majoring in health science, and favorite movie is After, like the Wattpad After. With the to be determined. Oh, okay. We have, is it Tayanya?
Hi, my name is Tiana. I'm gonna major in nursing. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm not currently reading anything, but my favorite show at the moment is called A Million Little Things on Hulu. And they're like, it's a drama series and everybody has their own problems, but it kind of ties together.
Oh, sweet. I think that's been on my list. Tien?
My name is Tien. My major is undecided as I have like 3 majors that I'm trying to figure out what to go to right now. My favorite book is probably 1984. My favorite author is probably Harry Turtledove, and yeah, a book that I'm currently reading, well, not even reading, but analyzing, is War and Peace.
Nice. One time I tried to read War and Peace, but then the library didn't have it, so I read Anna Karenina instead. So I mean, that was a good one too.
War and Peace is so long, so long. The analyzation takes too long.
See, both of those are on my list. I haven't got to them yet. They keep being bumped by other classics that are shorter. So.
All right. Lastly, and if we miss anybody, just like put it in the chat or like chime in. Is it Zaki?
My name is Zaki Griffin, and my pronouns are he, him. And my major is chemistry. And my favorite, I don't have a favorite, I'm more of a movie person and like series too. But my favorite genre is horror. I'm a huge horror fan. I could tell you anything. So, yeah.
Okay, so if I need more recommendations, I know who to come to.
No doubt.
All right, great.
Okay. I can do the housekeeping. All right, so just a couple of housekeeping things before we move on. We're both gonna put our emails into the chat, so you can email us if you have any questions. You should see on your schedule, I think on your end, which one of us you're seeing for the individual tutoring meetings. But I mean, you don't have to email the one that's tutoring you. Just if you have a question about your paper, that's probably the smart thing to do. But if it's like general stuff that you want to know about history majors or English majors or I don't know, professors that we might have run across, feel free to anything like that. Feel free to get in touch. Sorry, I can't type and talk at the same time. So feel free to contact us if you have any questions or anything like that, or about the workshops, anything like that. Just so you know, some of you already know this because you've already met with us, but what we're doing for second drafts is you don't have to submit those on Canvas or anything. What we'll do is whenever we meet with you, we're going to set up a Google Doc that has the first draft of your paper in it and send that to you and share it to you so that we both have access to it. That way you don't have to worry about sending it back to us when you've redrafted it. So you'll just work on your paper in that second draft document. And whether that means you're just kind of tweaking and editing it, or if you want to just kind of erase everything in it and start over from scratch, that's up to you. That's just so that so you don't have to worry about trying to get it to us before your next appointment. So that's how we're going to work with drafts. Anyone have any questions about that? Okay. I think that's it for housekeeping. So we each, so Emily and I both have a few writing samples that we just kind of want to go over and talk about. please do participate. We're each gonna read our sample that we have, and then we'll kind of ask what what do you see, what do you like, what strikes you about it. Please answer us. It's very awkward just sitting here waiting for answers.
Yes, and then the whole idea also behind doing showing the writing samples is just to show that there's so many different types of writing and like what makes good writing good. I mean, I don't think there's a universal definition for that, so I just get that out there that there's a lot of different types of writing. Yes. Okay, I'm going to share my screen to the first sample. And I kept the title out because I want to see if you guys know what it's from. We got some horror fans in here, so I'm guessing not going to be a problem, but okay. The terror, which would not end for another 28 years, if it ever did end, began, so far as I know or can tell, with a boat made from a sheet of newspaper, floating down a gutter, swollen with rain. The boat Bob listed righted itself again, dived bravely through treacherous whirlpools, and continued on its way down Witcham Street towards the traffic light, which marked the intersection of Witcham and Jackson. The 3 vertical lenses on all sides of the traffic light were dark this afternoon in the fall of 1957, and the houses were all dark too. There had been steady rain for a week now, and 2 days ago the winds had come as well. Most sections of Derry had lost their power then, and it was not yet back on. A small boy in a yellow slicker and red galoshes ran cheerfully along beside the newspaper boat. The rain had not stopped, but it was finally slackening. It tapped on the yellow hood of the boy's slicker, sounding to his ears like rain on a shed roof, a comfortable, almost cozy sound. The boy in the yellow slicker was George Denbrough. He was 6. His brother William, known to most of the kids at Derry Elementary School, and even to the teachers who would never have used the nickname to his face, as Stuttering Bill, was at home hacking out the last of a nasty case of influenza. In that autumn of 1957, 8 months before the real horrors began, and 28 years before the final showdown, Stuttering Bill was 10 years old. Yes, yeah. Yeah, I never finished the 1996 miniseries. I only watched the first half, but did anybody see, as far as writing goes, does anyone have any comments about what they think this does or what they like about it or don't like about it? Yeah. It's not casual, but it's not too dense. That's what I like about it. Is that what you kind of mean? Do you want to turn your camera on? Your mic on, Hannah, and talk a little bit more about the tone?
Yeah, I was gonna say like the words that you used in the beginning. Just not, I don't even know if this is considered tone. I mean, maybe it is, but the way that you paused in between some of where you were the terror, which would not end for another 28 years, if it ever did end, began. That beginning sentence just kind of leaves you in the suspenseful, if that was just one sentence without the, punctuation or anything, it would just be kind of bland. It would still stick out, but it'd be bland. So that kind of helps. And then in the first sentence of that following paragraph, your descriptive words, it just draws you in to want to know more, it gives you that mental image of the actual scene. And that's what's really good about the beginning. If you start a story or a piece of writing without that descriptive in the beginning, you might just be oh, this is boring. I don't feel anything, you know what I mean? Feels like you're reading a newspaper, but this is more descriptive.
Yeah, definitely agree. Yes, Diego, too, about interesting. And I do think too, when we're working on our personal essays, I think this is something that we can incorporate into them, even though it is an essay for a more academic setting. Because it's a personal essay, I think that as we all work together on your personal essays, we can kind of get some of this description in there, with some anecdotes and stuff like that, really making you visualize things to connect to it more, your personal stories. Yes. Does anyone else have any comments? All right, great.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up mine, be prepared for total tone shift. Okay. All right, can everyone see this? We're all good? Okay. So this is from a book called The Truth by Terry Pratchett. There are, it has been said, two types of people in the world. There are those who, when presented with a glass that is exactly half full, say, this glass is half full. And then there are those who say, this glass is half empty. The world belongs, however, to those who can look at the glass and say, what's up with this glass? Excuse me, this is my glass? I don't think so. My glass was full, and it was a bigger glass. And at the other end of the bar the world is full of the other type of person who has a broken glass or a glass that has been carelessly knocked over, usually by one of the people calling for a larger glass, or who had no glass at all because they were at the back of the crowd and failed to catch the barman's eye. William was one of the glassless, and this was odd because he'd been born into a family that not only had a very large glass indeed, but could afford to have people discreetly standing around with bottles to keep it filled up. It was self-imposed glasslessness, and it had started at a very early age when he'd been sent away to school. William's brother Rupert, being the elder, had gone to the Assassin's School in Ankh-Morpork, widely regarded as the best school in the world for the full glass class. William, as a less important son, had been sent to Hugglestones, a boarding school so bleak and Spartan that only the upper classes would dream of sending their sons there. So what sticks out to people here? What do you notice? What feels like it works, feels like it doesn't?
I'm not gonna lie. I feel like the message that this author is trying to convey is very interesting. And I like the wording a lot. I like the reference to history that he's making. There's a lot of good connections. And the words he's using is pretty, it seems like it's kind of like old English, probably Victorian era, in my honest opinion. It's kind of an interesting take on writing. It's been a while since any author would write this. It has a writing style like this, in my honest opinion. But that's just me. So yeah.
Yeah, as this is set in his Discworld series, which is kind of, it's sort of steampunk-ish, kind of. The way he describes, it's a fantasy world, but the way he describes it is that any profession in the Discworld should be existing at around its heyday. And this book is about the birth of newspapers and printing, which was, even though that was earlier than the Victorians, but that's kind of when it took off, was a little like 1700s, 1800s. So that's not a bad connection to make, actually. And I hadn't made that connection of language because it's not blatant. It's not like, this is not Dickensian, but it is heading in that direction. So that's a good catch. I didn't see that.
Well, yeah, and he's also describing like the society standards of like the half glass and like the full glass as well. So like I kind of just like it clicked for me immediately.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. Yep. So it just piqued my interest. I need to read.
Okay, so part of the reason that I like this is that it starts with a cliche and then it kind of just takes the logic of it and just starts running until it becomes funny. And this is a habit that Pratchett has, is like he'll grab something that we just kind of say and accept, and then he'll keep extending it logically until it becomes ridiculous, and suddenly we realize, oh wait, that is a kind of a weird thing to say. So it's neat to me that he just pulls out a cliche and then turns it into this huge extended metaphor. And he's also playing with language. You've got the similarity between the word glass and the word class, and then at the end he blatantly flips that around because it's instead of upper classes, it's upper glasses. And there's also, as Tian kind of pointed out, there's a social message in here, which is I particularly like because it's not slamming you over the head. It's not necessarily, it's not preaching, but it is very much there as soon as it's like this whole metaphor is like you can very much see colonialism, imperialism, and various other like just generalized dickery by the rich towards the poor. It's like just it's very much there, but it's kind of thrown in there as something that's mildly amusing to read, and then we move on. But it sticks. It does stick, which I find interesting because it's not, he hasn't buried it. He's just not dwelling on it particularly. And then also, I find this to be a pretty good introduction of character because within this metaphor, this actually tells us quite a lot about William because it's like, okay, we know he's from a very rich family, not just very rich family. It's one of those people that have fixers. It's one of those families that are above the law and he doesn't like it. So now we know a lot about his family. We know a lot about him as a person, and that's from essentially one giant metaphor. So it's just a really nice use of space and humor to me. And I will give the stage back to Emily.
All right. Another tone shift. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Got it. Okay, great. All right. This is one of my favorite poems by Martin Espada. It's called Federico's Ghost. The story is that whole families of fruit pickers still crept between the furrows of the field at dusk, when for reasons of whiskey or whatever, the crop duster plane sprayed anyway, floating a pesticide drizzle over the pickers who thrashed like dark birds in a glistening white net. Except for Federico, a skinny boy who stood apart in his own green row, and knowing the pilot would not understand in Spanish that he was the son of a whore, instead jerked his arm and thrust an obscene finger. The pilot understood. He circled the plane and sprayed again, watching a fine gauze of poison drift over the brown bodies that cowered and scurried on the ground, and aiming for Federico, leaving the skin beneath his shirt wet and blistered, but still pumping his finger at the sky. After Federico died, rumors at the labor camp told of tomatoes smashed and picked at night, growers muttering of vandal children or communists in camp, first threatening to call immigration, then promising every Sunday off if only the smashing of tomatoes would stop. Still, tomatoes were picked and squashed in the dark, and the old women in camp said it was Federico, laboring after sundown to cool the burns on his arms, flinging tomatoes at the crop duster that hummed like a mosquito lost in his ear and kept his soul awake. All right. Does anyone have any comments? Like, did this work for you? What do you think worked about it?
I feel like this poem is addressing the issue of if I remember correctly, it's been like a while, like 5 years, Mexican immigration, like the early, like mid 1930s to 1940s, if I remember correctly. Because I noticed if you go down, I noticed at the end, they says after Federico died, rumors at the labor camp told of tomatoes picked up and smashed at night. Grown mothers of vandal children or communists in the camp first threatened to call immigration. So honestly, my conclusion is probably like this is probably talking about when immigrants from Mexico was going into like Southern California and they were seeking new opportunities, and America started like California was starting to have problems with it, like any states that border with Mexico, and yeah, discrimination, racism, and all of that. Something to that extent. I don't know. It's been like 5 years since I recall this information, so like yeah, I don't know for sure. That's what I think the poem's trying to convey. The message is the problem of immigration.
Yeah, definitely an injustice. I don't know exactly when he wrote this. I think he wrote it closer to the 90s, but I think the similar themes are still existing today. But that is a good pickup that you got that kind of 1930s vibe from it. I see, Tiana, do you have a comment? Sorry, she went unmuted, so. Does anyone have any comments maybe about the language that's used or the poetic style?
Can you scroll up just a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like the language like kind of makes you want to like continue to read it, like want to know more, if that makes sense. Like it just like you just don't want to like stop mid-sentence. You just like want to continue and like hoping that there's more information to like what was said in the last line. That makes sense.
It does. I think that the way it builds is really good. And you're right, the way the ideas don't end in like any lines and the format kind of just keeps continuing. Like it doesn't have a very strict format or it's not over formal, and I think that makes it more readable and it doesn't take away from the imagery. So I do agree with you there. I saw some other people unmuted. Does anybody else have anything they want to talk about for this?
I feel like it kind of story tells while it's building atmosphere and setting as well.
Yeah, definitely. So it's not like those things aren't separated. It's the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good pickup too. Because I know sometimes when I write too, it's like I think that I can't build story without first setting up the setting, but the way that it does kind of come out as you read all of those things, I do think that is really intriguing, attractive. Oh, chat. Oh, yes. Hannah, you're unmuted. Did you want to say anything before we move on? No. Okay. All right. Heading back to Victoria.
Okay. All right. So this one is from an academic paper and is the first paragraph of an academic paper. So humans think in stories, and stories are powered through conflict. So we have heroes and we have villains, and the heroes and villains of literature can tell one a lot about the age and culture in which they were written. Our heroes reflect virtues that we admire, but those are usually conscious things. Understanding the villains reveals much more about a culture's true values and beliefs. Satan is the oldest villain of Western culture, the first of our foes, and to understand a period's attitude toward him is to understand its beliefs about evil. So that is the introduction to a literary criticism paper. What do you notice about it? Anything that strikes you it doesn't work, does work? Does it pique your interest?
It makes me want to like know more or like read more than just like the introduction of first paragraph. Like I want to like know more about like what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yep, no, that makes perfect sense, and that's exactly what it's designed to do. Hold on, okay. Yeah, that's exactly what it's designed to do. Anyone else? Anything else? Okay, so this was actually mine. This is from an honors thesis that I wrote, and because I didn't want to pick apart someone else's academic writing, so I figured we'll put mine on the chopping block. And so this is nowhere near my thesis yet. Like that paper was monstrous. The thesis is a good 2 or 3 pages away, but this was my introduction. So you're perfectly right. I'm trying to draw your interest in. This is trying to act like a hook. And it's also trying to situate you. So the reason I wanted to show you this is because it's a fairly good example of inverted triangle principle, which is something that tends to get talked about in connection to a thesis statement, which is that you start broad and then you get narrower and narrower and narrower until you get to your thesis. And again, this does not get to the thesis yet, but it creates a chain of reasoning that pushes the reader where I want them to go. So it starts with, all right, we're starting with stories. Okay, we're talking about stories in some capacity. What about the stories? Well, humans think in stories. That's my main premise here. Therefore, there are heroes and villains. Therefore, those heroes and villains explain a lot about the culture that's producing them. Therefore, heroes are going to consciously reflect virtue. Therefore, villains may unconsciously reflect different opinions about what's evil and what's forgivable and what's unforgivable and taboo and all of those things. And so therefore, villains are important to understand. Satan's a huge villain in Western culture, therefore it's important to understand Satan. So that's the chain of reasoning that I'm trying to establish here. I'm trying to get interest. I'm also letting you know, okay, we're talking about stories here. We're talking about villains. We're talking specifically about Satan. Why is it important that we talk about Satan? Because that's a window into culture and opinions about morality and evil. So I'm justifying the existence of the paper as well as trying to get interest. And again, like your first paragraph does not have to do all of this. And believe me, half of this, I didn't realize I'd done it till I was done with it. This is the result of many drafts and it's still not perfect. But this is just an example of something that you it's very easy to get stuck when you start a paper because it's like, okay, I'm talking about this. You might even have your thesis, but it's like, how do I get to the thesis? So, a lot of people will be like, we're going to talk about this, or they'll go straight to the thesis. And it's like, you don't need to do that. You can take some time to situate yourself and your reader. We're in this area of knowledge and we're getting and just kind of hone in until you're where you want to be. And stop share. So I think we've both got like one more sample for you, but we're running out of time, so I think we're going to skip those.
But if you're curious, send us an email. We could send them to you.
Yes.
So I think we have some closing remarks, but does anyone have any questions about how the tutoring works or writing in general, or any of fears they have about writing maybe? And if you don't want to talk now, like, you can just send us an email if you want to talk about it privately too.
How's the history major?
So I love being a history major. I mean, like every department in Rutgers-Camden, pretty much, it's pretty small. So you get to know your professors pretty well. They have a lot of cool courses. Like I took history of American pop culture. That was really good. Like all courses at Rutgers, Rutgers is a research college. So you're going to be doing a lot of writing and research, which is a good opportunity on the one hand for you to do independent research, or your professors are sometimes a little flexible in what they'll let you look up and really follow what you're interested in, what you can write about and research. So that is good, but it is a lot of writing.
Do they give any opportunities per se if you minor or major in history?
Well, I did opportunity. We have internships. So Rutgers has a pretty good public history program. So if you're interested in historical societies or museums, things like that, they do internships that way. And I also did an independent study. So they have opportunities for independent study too.
Okay.
And just a quick note before Hannah has a question, but just a quick note to bounce off of something that Emily said. It's the same in English, that they'll let you kind of go, a lot of professors will let you kind of go off in the direction that you want to go with your paper, especially because I think we probably get more levity that way, because it's not levity, leeway that way, because it's literary criticism. Like that Satan paper, a third of it was about the Fox TV show Lucifer. Now the other third was Paradise Lost and like other literary things, but like about a third of it was about a trashy TV show, and I was allowed to do that for my honors. So just be aware. Talk to your professor about trying to make this stuff fun for you, because it does help. All right, and Hannah had a question for Emily.
To answer Hannah's question, right now I'm in the grad program. I'm planning on getting my doctorate in history, or
So, like-
working in a museum.
Okay, yeah. So like that's what you want to do like after like college is completely over, like with your degree, like what would be your full like dream job? Like what you could do with that degree is to work in a museum, you said?
Probably be a college professor, honestly. That's probably more closer. But like I would also
because
work in a museum.
Because, I actually never thought of that. Like, because, there's like certain degrees and like there's like that specific job that goes with that degree. Like, there's not like a lot of multiple different. So I was like wondering, I was like, I wonder how many job opportunities there is with like a history major. Because, like, with English majors, you could really do a lot too. Like, you could do many things. So that's why I was curious about that. But that's pretty cool.
History, I feel like history is similar to English in that a lot of people tend to think of it as a soft skill, and it's not like, oh, what are you going to do with that? Be a professor, like, and that's the first thing everyone says when I say I'm an English major. They're like, oh, you're going to teach? No.
That's like the first thing people think is that you want to teach.
Exactly, and that's because what happens is there's a lot of stuff that it translates into, and I feel like history is the same way. It translates into stuff that's not directly related because you're learning critical thinking, you're learning research skills, you're learning clear writing. And those are all things that feed into a plethora of other careers that have nothing to do with English or history. So that's something, a couple of you said you were planning to go into English. If anyone's thinking of history, just be aware, even if you don't want to be a teacher, if this is something you're passionate about, you will find uses for this, because it's clear writing it's hard, and especially in a STEM-based world, a remarkable number of people can't do it. And different like research, that's a skill. A lot of people aren't learning that. So this is once you have these are marketable, is my point, and my very long-winded point. These are marketable skills. So don't let that discourage you if your passion is laying in kind of a less science, STEM driven moneymaker.
I also like to point out the fact, since I have a love for history, that history also helps you ask big questions, anything in general. Number one, everybody knows the saying when it comes to history, we learn from our mistakes in the past, so forth, make sure it doesn't repeat, so forth and so on. But at the same time, the most important thing about history and what you can take away from history, in my honest opinion, is that you are more insightful and you're more aware of your surroundings. And instead of asking basic questions, you just actually sit down and you actually think about why people do these, why people do this, why does our society have this, so forth and so on. That's the beauty behind history, is you can ask the big questions, and not a lot of people know what to say to that. And critical thinking is kind of needed nowadays, in my honest opinion. So like, yeah.
Yeah, especially like you can't separate. I think a lot of history is sociology and even some psychology too. Like you were just saying, you're thinking about why people make decisions and the way societies are made up. And just context too. Context for everything. Always contextualize everything, even English too, right, Victoria? Probably.
Politics stresses me out. I love politics from the age 14 to 18, and then just all of a sudden that button just switched off in me, and I was like, I've had enough. So I avoid it like the plague, but it is deeply tied to stuff like history and English. I try to avoid it, but you still run into it with like, so I tend to think of it in more fiction and literary terms, or politics from 50 years ago, because that doesn't stress me. So it's like, that's how I approach things. And it's like context, and it just teaches you to think. Like, since I've noticed changes in my thinking to even just the way I watch shows, because I've learned to think about stories and about literature and about phrasing and the way stuff works in story, because that's where like fiction, English doesn't have to be fiction. There are plenty of people that study nonfiction and other forms of English. I like fiction, so that's where I've put my energy. And even the way I watch shows is different now, because I'm kind of looking at it like, all right, structurally that works. character motivation works that way. Well, a person who's like this might behave this way. Like I just look at it differently. And that's a good eye to develop. That's a good tool to have, even if you can't or don't choose to make money off it. It's just a good thing to have. We really need to hit our endpoints before our 3 minutes are up.
Right. Does anybody else have any questions first?
No.
Okay, sweet. All right,
Okay,
Victoria.
yeah, so again, shoot us an email if there's anything more specific, or if you want to know about certain professors or whatever, just like let us know. First and foremost, we just want to remind you, writing is hard and it's a learned skill. It tends to get treated as this kind of soft thing that you should be able to do automatically once you learn grammar, and it's not. It's difficult. So don't be discouraged when something's not coming out right or it feels hard. It is hard, and it's not like, you know, professional writers still have trouble with this. Like this is, you know, I'm 5 years of study in English so far, and it's still hard sometimes. It's like any other skill. So don't be discouraged by that. And don't feel like you shouldn't be asking for help. You absolutely, like, help is here. We're here for these 5 weeks. And then like once you're in Rutgers proper, like you're in classes, there's the writing and design lab, there's the learning center, there's your professors are a great resource. Utilize them. They're not going to hold your hand as much with like minutia and stuff like grammar, but they will help you with the content and structure. So there, question. I don't believe it is anymore. It used to be. I think they cut it, and now it's there. They're still offering Shakespeare courses. They're there, but they're not. They're electives now. Like they satisfy other requirements. Like I think they probably satisfied. I can't remember what they satisfy, but they don't. There isn't a Shakespearean requirement anymore. There used to be, but they got rid of it. And I actually, by accident, didn't take Shakespeare during my bachelor's at all. I wanted to, but it always clashed with something that I had to take. So I never ended up taking a Shakespeare course. You probably won't avoid him altogether if that's what you're trying to do. He pops up in other courses. I had to read one of his plays, Titus Andronicus, in a Lit 1 class that was required. It was kind of a survey of literature, and he threw a Shakespeare in there specifically because they just dropped the Shakespeare requirement. He was like, well, we should probably read something by him. So you probably won't avoid him altogether, but no, he's not required. But yeah, don't be afraid to seek help. It's not, it doesn't mean you're dumb or that you're incompetent or anything like that. I still, again, English major, fairly good at writing. I still went and hung out with the other tutors from when I was working at the writing and design lab. I would be working on something and I call someone over and be like, can you look at this? This doesn't feel right. This is a second eye always helps.
Yep. Yes, because second pair of eyes and just like the communication and having a dialogue to help you work through sentences and ideas too. Yes, I don't have anything else more to say. You have our emails, and if we haven't met with you already, one of us will definitely be meeting with you one-on-one in this week or next week. Yep.
Yep.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.
Yep. Bye.